Hello and welcome in the studio. As the winter was pretty hard this year, with lots of rain, flooding, heavy snow everywhere, we decided to stay home. It was just impossible to shoot any footage, but we have a surprise for you. As we fly over beautiful Vancouver Island in the drone of Rick Ward, we will leave Canada for a short while, and I will take you to the wonderful city of Apkoude in Holland. Apkoude lies in between Utrecht and Amsterdam. Visiting by boat will take you right back in time. Close by this romantic little town, we can visit the Mondriaan Molen, or the Mondriaan Mill. And it's now a B&B where you can sleep and stay. How cool is that? Now, these kind of windmills were necessary to keep our polders dry. They were a beloved topic for our famous painters like Mondriaan Roelofs and Paul Constantin Gabriel. And he is our special guest for the second time in our show. To save some time, I already made a sketch in gray tones. And as we always work from the back forwards, we will start with the sky, as usual. At work. Yes, the official title is indeed in the month of July. And we are not even sure if this windmill is the same as the one in Apkoude, but it's almost equal to the Mondriaan. As you saw me painting before, you know I like the techniques of the School of the Hague. Always a nice glow on the horizon, and this time I work on top with some grey tones. In Holland, like on Vancouver Island, all colors can come out of the greys, because of the mist of course. On top I added a bit more ultramarine blue to create a dark sky fault. And we can use a filbert brush, and like the Dutch masters, we will create a soft crisscross strokes. With this technique we will have already some movement in the sky. And of course there are clouds. With a good highlight we can paint an upcoming cloud. Paul created a nice standing up series and let him lean over a bit to the left to create tension. Tension, yes, tension. Your piece of art is in fact a mini movie. Tell a story, create a mystery, and very important, there should be pace in the painting. This is another painting of Paul Gabriel. He painted this one in the neighborhood of Apkoude, the same village, yes. And like in Vancouver Island, it's always misty, rainy and so on, almost the same weather. And he created this painting with soft, grey, romantic tones. It's so very beautiful. Before we paint reflections, we will have to make the water wet again, just with some grey. On top, a bit of the ochre reflection from the sky. As light loses its strength on the way down, add a bit more dark grey into the water, especially in the lower parts, almost black. And we can load the filbert brush with highlight, and with soft, wiggly movements we push it into the wet paint downwards to create reflections of the clouds. Check out where the clouds are. Below, a bit more light, and with soft horizontal strokes we can fade into the wet paint. This great technique works only wet in wet. Don't forget the little workmanship. Just a few dark grey strokes will do. Fade it in, and later, after painting the windmill reflections, we will paint with a knife some water ripples. The top of the windmill was on the average built from reed or thatch. We can mix some burnt sienna with grey, and I always like to mix 3 different tones, dark, middle and light. I love to improvise between those tones. We can use a small round brush and sketch the colors in, downwards that is. A very nice technique when you paint a rough surface. For the dark side, we can add some more dark grey. That's easy. Now don't work too precise, it's all far away. I saw this painting very close by in the Rijksmuseum and it's almost impressionistic. Rough, loosely brush strokes. And that is what Paul did in those days. And it made him famous. The wooden edges are painted with a bit of light burnt sienna. As the sun comes from the left, we will keep the left side plate also light with some burnt sienna. On top of it, here and there, a bit of light grey too. Downwards, we can do the same with some darker tones and we can make it more rough. A mill like this was beaten up by storm and rain, as they always were built on a high dike, and they were often hit by lightning and burned down completely. The life of a miller was not without any risk. It's hard work. You have to turn the head of the mill into the wind every morning by hand and take care that the wheels don't run too fast. It can cause a fire. And the only thing what you can do then is run away as fast as you can. There are still hundreds of windmills in Holland, and most of them, lucky enough, are still working or rebuilt as a condo. Let's put up a bit more grey on the edges and also some highlight on the wooden edge on top. Now it will come more forwards. For the shadow side, we can add some more dark grey. That's pretty easy, but even in the shadow is some color. So what you can do is add a bit burnt sienna. And again, I use a small round brush. As you can see, I used my friend the palette stick, always, to lean my hand on. It will bring my hand at ease. The tricky part are the windows. Just a bit of dark grey will do it, and down below a bit of light ochre. And now the viewer can see how thick the layer of the reed is. Now let's take a little break, relax and enjoy. I promised you another round trip to the canals of Amsterdam. Well, here we are. The Prinsengracht, the Herengracht, the Keizersgracht. It's all there like 500-600 years ago. This is the A. 500 years ago, it was the harbor of Amsterdam. And on the right side, where all the condos are now, there was an executioner field for criminals, of course, and an official hangman tree or a gallows. Often you could find Rembrandt over there, making studies of all the bodies who were hanging around there in the wind. A bit morbid? Maybe. But you have to think, there was no Pinterest in those days where you could download all those body studies and so on, so it was understandable. Now, it is not very romantic anymore, so let's dive into the old part and let's go into the Prinsengracht. In the distance, you will see the Westertoren. And behind the Westertoren is the Westerkerk or the Western Church. And for me, that's Holy Ground. Because somewhere under that floor lies the grave of Rembrandt. Nobody knows exactly where, but he is there. Isn't that strange? That church is impressive. Come take a look if you ever visit Amsterdam. And now about this painting. As I had so many requests of a lot of viewers to do an old windmill, you might be curious, are we allowed to use a painting from a famous master? The answer is yes. I asked special permission from the Rijksmuseum in Amsterdam to use this painting and more in our program. In fact, the Rijksmuseum is progressive and modern. They even encourage young artists to use the paintings to do something special or original with it. The thought behind it is that you will learn a lot from the great masters. Personally, I like to make something special of it. I always give it my personal touch. Be original, but use the techniques, what's hidden there, and discover. Before we move on with the mill, we better paint the back meadows first. My advice is to keep it misty, as this is all muddy waters and swampland. And the fan brush will do the trick for you. As you can see, I shake it horizontally. Now let's skip a little bit to save some time. We have to realize that this part lies low. It's all low land, and the windmill is built on a high dike. Right behind the mill we will paint some shadow. Just add a bit of dark grey to the green, make it all rough. I always load 2 colors on my fan brush. This is a great technique to create a rough surface. It's all weeds and bushes. No, it's not a nice manicured garden. And on top of the dike is always a footpath. It works the best as we use some burnt sienna with a bit of grey. We wiggle and wiggle with the fan brush and look what a great result. It's so easy. And yes, we have to speed up to save some time. Sorry for that, but I think you still can follow me. If not, watch the show on YouTube. Down below on the screen you will find a button to slow down the speed. Only the sound might be a bit awkward, but you can put that out of course. On the left side of the water we can paint the same dark green as an underlayer for the grasses and the weeds. Mix the greens in your own taste. Every human being has his own color feeling about reds and greens. If you want a different green, just go ahead and mix it. Be creative. In the original painting you will see a cow or goat, but I decided to skip to save some time. But if you want it, paint the cow or goat, or maybe there's some chickens, just go ahead. You have all the time in the world. Oh yes, don't forget little shed. Just a bit of dark grey and burnt sienna will do the trick. Not too much. It's probably the house of the 8th of journeyman of the miller. Usually this was a one-room stable where he lived with his wife and maybe 10 or 12 kids. Can you imagine that? Yes, those were different times. With a small round brush we will bring in the dark blanks first. The best what you can do is use some dark grey with a bit of burnt sienna. Burnt sienna, it's such a nice earth tone, almost usable for everything. I use it for wood, forest ground, even skin tone sometimes. Oh, don't forget the roof, by the way. First paint it dark and then give it a few strokes of orange to create some roof tiles, but not too much. It's just an illusion. Dark yellow and Allyson crimson will work the best, and you can use titanium white to make it a bit lighter. Let's make the shed a little bit bigger, give the poor man some more space. In those days, the workers were very dependent of the bosses. Some were treated very well, some were treated like slaves. Aren't we lucky to live in these modern times? Of course, the shed needs a chimney too. Use a bit of ochre and grey and that's enough. On front, a few planks, and that will make a kind of fence. It's all rough wood, so that will be easy enough. We were talking about copying Dutch masters. The painter Hans van Meegeren took that very serious. He was turned down by the Dutch painting establishment and wanted revenge. He studied Dutch masters, bought an old canvas from 1600, sanded it and painted the Emmausgangers of Vermeer. A good friend, the painting broker Rens Strybis, presented the so-called lost painting of Vermeer. And Museum Boijmans van Beuningen, the same who had turned down Hans van Meegeren, bought the painting for what now would be millions of dollars. Hans van Meegeren had his revenge. Yes, while we continue painting on the mill, I will tell you the rest of the story. Hans had his revenge, and he was about to tell the truth to make a fool of all these so-called experts. I wish he had done so, but the millions felt good, and suddenly he was a rich man. And in the year 1937, millions were real millions. He decided to counterfeit more paintings. Yes, he became greedy. After 6 more paintings, he was unmasked by critics and the police for selling paintings to the Germans during wartime. So he was convicted for 1 year of prison. During this process, he became a folk hero. In Holland, people love heroes who are brave enough to kick the establishment. Poor Hans. Before he went to prison, he had a heart attack and passed away at the age of 58. The moral of this story is better stay on the good side of the road. Better be a starving artist than a rich prisoner. In the meantime, I was building the bridge with dark grey and of course some burnt sienna. In fact, we are looking at the down part of the mill where the water streams under through. The water from the lower meadows is pumped up into the Ringvaart, which is the canal upon the dike. Time for reflections. We will do the same mixes as the real mill, but a bit darker. Light loses his strength when it travels down, like I told you before. Yes, we need patience for this, but we painters are a patient breed. We have to, otherwise you better go racing or running. First, we paint the ground layer with some ochre and grey, and maybe a bit more grey into the mix. That will do. By the way, don't mind the horrible color on the dike. We will work on that after the reflections. But for now, we will work at the reflection of the mill. So use the same color mixes, but like I said, a bit darker. While you are at work, that will give me the opportunity to tell about the Anne Mary Bailey Fund. This is a small fund for sick kids in BC. With sick, I don't mean a cold or flu, as you will understand. I love to support with my art good charities like I did in Holland, and now I do it in Canada. I also support the Wildlife Center in Arrington. Take a look at the bears I painted. Or come by in our store where I created a special department for the Anne Mary Bailey Fund with paintings I made for this show. And you may do a bit, of course. Thank you so much, and we hope to meet you soon. As you can see, we are not too picky about the right side of the mill reflection, as the trees and the bushes will hang over it, as well we do later. With a bit of ochre, we can paint the planks on top, and don't forget the dark edges. The most difficult part of the reflection are the windows. Take a good measure, and most important, take your time. I've seen terrible mistakes, even in famous masters' paintings. What do you think of a flag which is waving against the wind, or a light spot what should be shadow? It happens. This is nerve-wracking. Painting a small week with 500,000 viewers watching over my shoulder. With my brush slips, I spoil the sky. But yes, I did it. Thank you, thank you. Now, watch the technique. First, I practice the move, and when I'm sure, I sketch a thin grey line. If something goes wrong, it's easy to remove or correct. Slowly, we can make the line thicker. And time for the other one, of course. As this week has a perspective, be careful, it might deceive you. But oil painting is so forgiving. And if you might have trouble with the smell, you even can use water mixable oil. No smell at all. You probably ask yourself, why are these weeks turning into the wind? Well, on the weeks are pieces of leather like sails on a ship. Much wind, almost no sails. Less wind, much sails. Makes common sense, right? And with our ochre mix we can easily paint some sails. But don't forget the shadow and of course the light part. First we will start with the dark shadow, just a bit of grey, and then bring in the colors yellow ochre with Elysian crimson with some titanium white. Yes, the same as we used in the sky, but then a little bit stronger. As you can see, I use my stick as a ruler. What a great invention. With a bit of highlight, we can paint the edges too. Don't forget that. The first windmills were probably founded in China, maybe in the year 25. In Europe, they appeared in the year 1000, and in 1280, we will find the first windmill with a movable head, like this one. So the miller was able to turn the whole head right into the wind. Yes, it's always good to know some history. On the top week we can do exactly the same technique. Start with the ochre tone and in the shadow a bit of dark grey, and of course there's the edge. A bit tricky, but a stick will help you through it. Now students often ask me, Michael, which paint and brushes do you use? Well, I'm a bit of a garbage bin. I eat everything. I mean, I always try all brands and sorts of brushes. I'm not really hooked on one brand. The best advice I can give you, buy at a store where you can get a decent help and advice and buy the best materials you can afford. That's what I always do, and you won't be disappointed. Now let's take a look at our new lesson center. Elvis is in the building and willing to make a selfie with you. We have a decent amount of instruments now, and as this is a mainstream lesson center, we teach music, art, scrapbooking and card making. My wife Els is designer by Heartfelt Creations, and every month we will have new materials. She makes the most fantastic paper art for all opportunities. And these are all our wonderful students, always in a good mood, and they make progress. And there's your teacher, sweating on a sunset, but we have the greatest fun, and that is the most important. And here's my paper specialist Els. She creates magic with paper, and I'm so proud of her. You will understand that we are so happy with our new lesson center, and it's growing. Now let's paint another fence. We are in the shadow, so that will start with dark grey and burnt sienna. 2 stands and it's complete. And of course there is the miller. The best you can do with a figure is paint the shape first. As the shape is correct, the rest is an easy peasy. Now this poor guy is probably suffering from rheumatics, arthritis and so on. He has to climb the steep dike. So we paint him a bit out of balance. And let's give him a stick to lean on. Most of the millers are old and grey. Clothing in those days were simple. Most of the time just leather. Some grey hairs here and there, and he is ready to go. Don't forget his shadow, very important. Another tricky move on the mill. The weeks are anchored as there is no wind. It's a very thin line, and we got more dangerous business to do with the brake. With this boom and the hanging chain, the miller could break the rotating weeks. Very, very important. Just catch and nothing bad can happen. lean your hand on the stick and it will help too. Now let's make the brake a little bit sturdier and give him also a touch of a highlight. Highlights are so important and brings life in your painting. And no, this is not an antenna, this is the flag mast. This flag means that the windmill is secured. It's just an old flag. We are almost there. With a fan brush and 2 tones of green, we can decorate the dike. Now it's coming to life. Use your fantasy, just wiggle and wiggle, and it might even get a bit too soapy because of all that wet paint, so you better wait till the underlayer is dry. In this case that works better, but you will get the idea anyway. In fact, the more weeds the better it is. There's only one thing to keep in mind: millers don't like trees, and you will probably understand why. Yes, they take the wind away, and that's why you will never find a tree close to a mill. On the opposite side of the water we can do the same. Just little weeds and bushes, maybe some flowers. Just go ahead and have some fun at your world, and sorry for Paul Gabriel, we do what we like. With a knife and some light clay we can make some water ripples. Very thin, very delicate, and no pressure at all is the secret. And what is a windmill without birds? In our meadows, which are wetlands, you will find tons of cute birds. With a bit of dark grey, we can let them fly. Try it and paint as many birds as you wish. Now don't forget to use a stick, that is your big friend. We have done it, a real Dutch windmill. How cool is that? As usual, you'll find everything on our website. Till the next time, and keep on painting.